So in this lecture, we'd like to look at substances and how they're related to elements and compounds. An interesting thing about substances is that although they have fixed properties, they can often be broken down by a chemical change. For example, I have the substance sugar here, and I'm going to heat it up. Maybe I'll put my goggles on here. So it's not unlike caramelization in the kitchen. The sugar is turning to a darker caramel color, but we're going to go past the caramel stage and we're going to go to the stage where the sugar is completely changed. So this looks like magic, but it's what we will call a chemical change. It's a change of one substance into a new substance which has completely different properties. What we want to focus on for this chemical change is that the sugar has changed into two new things. There's a black solid in the bottom, that's called carbon, and there's a clear liquid that's condensed along the sides of the test tube, and that is our very familiar water. What we want to concentrate on is that sugar can break into two new substances. And now we'd like to ask the question, what about the substances that were made, the carbon and the water? Can we break those down? Well, the carbon is an interesting case because although we can break down the sugar, we cannot break down the carbon. By heating, by lots of different procedures we might do, we can never break down the carbon. So the carbon is referred to as an element. Anything that's a substance that cannot be broken down further is going to be an element. How about the water? Can we break the water down more? Well, the answer is yes, we can. I've got a bunch more water. It's in a beaker, and the wires are for putting electric current through the water. And I've done that already. And these upside down test tubes collect gas. Two gases are formed when you run electric current through water. Now the formula for water is H2O. So you probably from your previous experience might have guessed that the gases are hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, and they are. And you might even further have guessed that since the formula is H2O, the gas that is twice as abundant, there's twice as much, is the hydrogen, and the gas that's only half as much is the oxygen. And you could do tests and you'd find out that the hydrogen and the oxygen gases behave fundamentally different than water. For one thing, hydrogen burns. Well, an interesting thing about the hydrogen and oxygen is that they are like the carbon. No matter what I would do to the oxygen or hydrogen gas to try to break it apart, I couldn't do it. So we find the carbon, the hydrogen, and the oxygen in these two experiments are all elements. They cannot be broken down. But what do we call the other substances in our experiment? The water that was on the inside of this test tube and the original sugar. those are known as compounds. Compounds are substances that can be broken down into two or more things. So what we find is that everything is made out of elements. The elements can combine to form compounds like the sugar and the water. And if you think about it, all substances will either be the elements themselves or the combinations of them in compounds. And since substances mixed together make mixtures and all the rest of the world, everything is made out of these elements combining into compounds, and then the compounds mixing with other compounds and mixtures, other compounds and elements to make mixtures.